At the end of the last video, we ran our deployment script, and you should now see inside of your terminal both the contract interface, which will be a big block of text like so, and you should also see the contract address. So this is where the contract was deployed to on the xbte test network. We're now going to copy paste both the ABI and the address and add them to a new file inside of our React project. So I'm going to change back over to my code editor. I'm going to make sure that I am inside of the React project. So I definitely am. And then I'm going to create a new file inside of the src directory. So I'll make a new file and I'm going to call this lottery.js. At the top of this file, we'll first start off by importing our Web3 instance. Remember, the entire goal of this is to set up a local copy of the contract that refers to the correct address on the xbte test network. And Web3 is an integral part of making that connection. So we're going to import Web3 from /Web3, like so. Then underneath that, we're going to console log, or excuse me, we're going to copy paste over the address and the ABI that we just console logged out at the terminal. So I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to highlight the address and I'm going to copy it. I'm then going to go back over to my code editor. I'll make a new variable called address and I'll paste it in like so. And then I'm going to repeat the same process for the contract ABI. So underneath that, I'll say const ABI. I'll go back to my terminal. I'm going to copy the entire ABI from the first square bracket to the bottom square bracket. I'll copy this. I'll go back over to my code editor and paste it. Now, when you paste it, you'll probably see it appear on the screen a little bit like this. So everything kind of condensed down to one line. I personally am running a code formatter inside of my editor that automatically runs anytime that I save a file. So I'm going to save the file right now, and when I do so, you're going to see all of my code kind of jump and reformat itself on the screen. If you see your code looking like this, that is totally fine. So you do not have to reformat or do anything to what you see. This just happens automatically for me because it's a plugin that I use. And just in case you're curious, I use Prettier. It's spelled Prettier. You can always go and look it up and install it in your own editor if you want to. So if your ABI does not look exactly like this, if it's all kind of scrunched up into one or two lines, that is totally fine. You don't need to reformat it or anything like that. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do inside this file, we're going to take the address and we're going to take the ABI. We're going to use that to create a new local contract instance using the Web3 library. Now, the thing I want you to remember here is that when I say a local contract instance, it means we're going to make an object that exists only inside of our browser that kind of functions as an abstraction or a representation of our deployed contract. So the object that you and I are going to create is not the actual contract that exists on the blockchain. It is a local JavaScript only copy that is meant to represent what is actually occurring on the blockchain over here. So you can kind of imagine that what we are going to create will be something over here that looks like, local copy of that contract or something like that. This local copy will be created by using the contract ABI that we just pasted in and the address that we just pasted in as well. So we can really imagine that this local copy refers over to this copy that exists on the blockchain. All right, so let's give this a shot. I'm going to go back down, or I'm going to go back to my lottery.js file, and I'm going to scroll to the very bottom of it, where we will create this new local instance of the contract. And we're going to export it from this file at the same time. So we don't really care about working with a contract in this file at all. The only purpose of this file is to create the instance of the contract. We're then going to work with it from the React side of our application. So down here, we will say export default, new web3.eth.C contract, and then we will pass in the ABI and the address, like so. And of course, I will save the file as well. All right, so now this lottery.js file exports a complete copy of our contract that we can work with from the React side of our code base. So this thing right here, this thing that we just created and exported, is essentially our window or our portal, our access to our contract that actually exists on the blockchain. This line of code right here, specifically the web3.eth.contract, should look pretty familiar. You will recall that we wrote the same line of code when we were just working on our test project, or all the testing code, a little bit ago. So just as we did before, just as we created a copy of our contract, we're doing the same exact thing over here as well. So all the same methods that we were using inside of our test code, like say, let's go pull those up, why not? So here's our test file right here. So before, when we called things like, say, lottery.methods.enter.send, all the same code can now be used from the React side of our application. So if from the React side we want to enter into the lottery, we can basically write this exact same line of code right here inside the React project, and it's just going to work for us, period. So that's why I was really excited to write these tests. I know the tests are boring, but they give you a good sense of how to interact with Web3. So now you've got all that knowledge, and we can immediately apply it to the React side of our project. All right, so let's pause here. We're going to come back in the next video, and we're going to start to customize the app component to show some information about our deployed contract. So that's where we're going to really connect the Ethereum and the React world together. So see you in just a minute.